Governor Phil Murphy, welcome to ITV Gold. Thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Very good to be back. Thank you for having me, Aditi.
You know, I have a lot of questions for you, so let's go right into it. My first question to you has to be about what's happening with COVID-19 crisis, Governor. Obviously, we're seeing a rise in cases across the nation, and New Jersey also is seeing a certain amount of rise in cases. My first question to you has to be, are you disappointed in New Jerseyans that are deciding not to get vaccinated? And what is being done for that community of people to get them to get vaccinated?
Yeah, again, it's good to be back with you. There are two types of people, Aditi, that are not vaccinated. One group I'm very frustrated with. They are saying and or believing complete myths about the vaccine and its safety. But there's another block of people, for a variety of reasons, who are not vaccinated, who have legitimate reasons. They may not speak English. They work 2 or 3 jobs. They think that the vaccine will out their immigration status. They've been told it costs a lot of money, a variety of reasons. I'm deeply disappointed with the first group, but with the second group, we are doggedly going door to door in many communities, still getting people vaccinated. New Jersey has among, if not the highest rate of vaccination of any state in America, certainly of any big state, and we should all be proud of that. Folks have, by the millions, done the right thing. So the overwhelming majority of folks in our state have done exactly what they should be doing, and they should be recognized for that.
Governor, how concerned or worried are you about spikes that could happen in the fall and winter? Because right now things remain still okay in the Northeast, but are you worried it may get out of hand?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have concern with this pandemic. Every time you think you've figured it out, it takes a turn, and it's very humbling. Having said that, I wouldn't trade our state with any other state. As I mentioned, our rate of vaccination, we have the smallest percentage of ICU beds occupied by COVID patients of any state in America. Do I think when we begin to live our lives predominantly indoors, will this bump up again? I fear it will, but I also would say that I don't think it will come close, based on everything we know, to impairing or threatening the capacities in our healthcare systems. I also would recommend everybody, if you're eligible for a booster, go out and get that booster shot, because that's even more protection against the virus.
Yeah, quite interesting enough, my mom got her booster shot just yesterday, and I'm very grateful for it because she is at high risk. You know, just talking about COVID-19 in general, Governor Murphy, I have to ask you, when you are looking back at all the work that's been done by your administration in the last 1.5 years and more, almost 2 years of this pandemic, what could you have done better? What would you have done differently had you known more details, had you known what was needed for the community? What's your take on that?
I don't think there are steps that we would have done differently per se, but I was very frustrated with then President Trump. You may recall this in a book that he was being interviewed for by Bob Woodward, I believe, who admitted that they knew this was an airborne virus, and secondly, they knew a lot more about how lethal it was before they let on to the rest of the country. Had we known that, we would probably have taken the same steps, but we would have taken them much sooner, and we would have saved lives as a result of that. I also bemoan still the fact that President Trump made the wearing of one of these a political battlefield, which it never should have been. And that has also sadly cost health and lives as a result.
Would you say New Jersey right now is more prepared to handle another big outbreak of pandemic if that happens?
There's no question. I would say more prepared, certainly, than we were at the beginning. There was no playbook at the beginning.
Right.
And I would say we're as prepared as any American state, without question. So the answer is yes to both.
Let's talk about mandates, Governor, because a lot has been said about it nationally, a lot is being said about it internationally as well. My first question to you on that has to be, what made you decide to enforce or implement these vaccine mandates across the state, especially for school staff? What was the biggest factor that pushed you to do that?
Well, the factor is a simple one. Regardless of whether or not it's a popular decision or not, you make the decision based on the science and the data and the facts. And the overwhelming evidence is that these vaccines are safe and they work, period. Secondly, masking. It brings me no joy to have everybody inside of a school building wearing a mask, but the evidence is overwhelming that that is a very smart public health move, particularly with this Delta variant still in our midst. And by the way, let's remember kids under the age of 12 do not have any vaccine available yet to them. So the combination of those steps, we believe, keeps our school reality as safe as possible. Remember, the mandates include a testing option. So I want everybody to get vaccinated who's eligible. But if for whatever reason they're not vaccinated, we make them test up to multiple times a week. We think that package of steps, that layered approach in combination, will keep our schools safe.
What has been the overwhelming response about these mandates, according to you, Governor, especially when you're looking at the school settings? Are you getting most teachers and staff vaccinated right now?
Yeah, without question. Educators already started at a high level of vaccination before we put this in place. And there's no question that number's gone up even more so. And the reaction is generally one of acceptance. If you look at any public polling, not that I care about the polling, but I do care about whether or not how many people are taking these steps seriously. The good news is, by margins of well over 2-1, New Jerseyans, even if they don't like the public health step, they accept that it's the right thing to do, and they raise their hand and say that they will adhere to that. And that's another great statement about the overwhelming majority of folks in our state doing the right thing.
You know, Governor Murphy, I have to ask you, I know you don't talk about other states and you don't have to, but when you see political leaders such as yourself, governors and other state officials go ahead and voice against mask mandates, against vaccine mandates, are not promoting vaccine awareness, how frustrating does it get for you as a leader to watch this? And do you think it can eventually affect New Jersey as a state?
Well, it's extremely frustrating, and sadly, it's already, in fact, impacting New Jersey. In fact, I don't want to get too political, but I'm running against a candidate who is very much wishy-washy on vaccination requirements and mask requirements. So it's come to New Jersey. The tragedy of 19 months ago was that there was no playbook. We were all hit with this at once. And we were all doing our level best based on the data and the facts to push back at it. The tragedy of today is that there is a playbook. We know exactly what works against this virus. It's a combination of largely vaccination and masks when you're inside and you can't know the vaccination status of the people around you. And so people tragically are in other states and sadly in New Jersey. This is now, the folks in the hospital are overwhelmingly unvaccinated folks right now.
Right.
The folks who are passing are overwhelmingly unvaccinated. So it's incredibly tragic when we know what to do and people are willfully ignoring that. And I just keep them all in my prayers and hope that they come to their senses.
Yes, for sure. And get vaccinated, the most important thing. Governor, I have a couple of questions about the economy now. We often discuss small businesses in New Jersey because they are owned by many South Asian Americans living there. And we're a South Asian American network. What is being done to help them? And what kind of federal help do you still need for these businesses?
Oh, we've done a lot. And by the way, let's be very clear that when you have a mantra, a guiding principle that public health creates economic health, we had to get our arms around the virus first. We just had no other choice. But we paid an enormous toll in our economy. And nowhere has that been felt more so than in small businesses. So we've already put an enormous amount of money on the street, somewhere between $750 and $800 million. We're behind only California and New York, which are a lot bigger than we are, in the amount of money we've put on the street for small businesses. We just announced a plan last week called Return and Earn, which is both money for folks to incent them to come back to work, but also money, this is exclusively for small businesses, by the way,
right,
money that goes to the small business to train that employee, to upskill that employee. We've already had over 2,000 small businesses sign up as part of that program. And we're going to stay there for them. This is not over yet. We still have federal money that we will almost certainly deploy. Our small businesses employ 60% of employment in our state. As you rightfully point out, the South Asian community is disproportionately represented in the small business community,
Right.
which is another badge of honor for the community. And we'll be there for them, I promise you.
You know, when talking about the economy, I have to ask you, Governor, infrastructure bill that President Biden has been pushing and, the Democrats have also been pushing. Do you support it, and do you think it can boost the economy of New Jersey?
I do support it. There's no question it can boost our economy. It's really in two parts. The hard asset stuff, when you're the most densely populated state in America with a lot of legacy assets, we're a big winner.
Right.
And then the so-called human infrastructure, the softer stuff, frankly, is a laundry list of things we're already doing in New Jersey. We're showing and proving that this stuff is successful, but it will allow us to do it a lot faster and at bigger scale. But we must, Adita, we must lift the cap on the state and local tax deduction. That was a Trump administration, Republican Party shot at New Jersey. It's crushed, especially fixed income, middle class homeowners, folks who are retired. And we've got to get that lifted. And I'm going to keep fighting for that until we do.
Another big issue here that I'd like to discuss with you, Governor, you have said, quote, while some states are rolling back access to reproductive health, we are committed to moving New Jersey forward. Let's pass the RFA, the Reproductive Freedom Act. What would that mean for women of New Jersey, for you? And also, what are your feelings about these reproductive rights being attacked in other parts of the nation?
Well, my feeling on the latter part of your question is horror. Women are being criminalized. These decisions should be between a woman and her doctor, period. And you feel like we've already accomplished that right. And now, with great horror, states are taking it away. And the U.S. Supreme Court, with Donald Trump's 3 recent nominees, look poised to further take those freedoms away. The problem in New Jersey. The good news is reproductive freedom, as we sit here today, is protected in New Jersey, and that's good. But here's the problem. It's entirely built on the back of case law. And that case law is in turn entirely built on the foundation of Roe v. Wade from 50 years ago. Right. If Roe v. Wade is impaired or, God forbid, completely removed, all of that case law in New Jersey would fall down like a house of cards. So we need a law passed by the legislature and brought to my desk that I would sign to protect women's reproductive freedom by law. And that's the step we have to take in New Jersey.
I truly appreciate your take on women's reproductive rights, Governor. I think it's about time that we decide what we want for our bodies. 2 more questions left for you, Governor. Have to ask you about your support for Afghan refugees that have now been trying to settle in New Jersey. You opened the joint base to them when they were being evacuated from Afghanistan. I'd like to know what you see as the future of these people in New Jersey and what do you have to say to them?
I'm honored that we raised our hand early on and said these folks stood beside us for 20 years in Afghanistan. We owe them to stand beside them in their toughest hour of need. We've worked very well with the federal government, led by Homeland Security, our military, former Governor Jack Markell from Delaware, who's coordinating this. And New Jersey's been a strong partner from moment one. There are many thousands of these refugees right now on the joint base. My wife, the First Lady, visited there for a couple of hours yesterday and said it was a remarkable scene. I had been there a few weeks ago, but the entire village has been further built out by our tremendous military. And while there are many thousands on the base, I think it'll probably be measured in the hundreds who ultimately permanently settle in New Jersey. So these folks are here now. I think we're one of 8 states where they are based. Again, it's the right thing to do. It's the American thing to do. We are a nation of immigrants, and we can never forget that. Yeah. And the South Asian community certainly knows that all too well. We're going to do right by these people, and whether they're here for a temporary amount of time or whether they ultimately choose to live out their lives in New Jersey, we'll be there for them.
Yes, and that's so important for us to be there for these people. My final question to you, Governor. Election is upon us. It's on November 2nd. I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked you last year. How are you going to ensure election safety and security with, again, so much being said about are the ballots being counted right? What's happening with the ballots? How are you looking at this whole process, and what do you have to say to the community about it?
Yeah, sadly, this is a Trump legacy, and that includes, unfortunately, a lot of folks in his party in this state. Overwhelmingly, what people have been sold about reliability of our voting apparatus and reality is complete myth. Sadly, people get hit by lightning, and we lost a lifeguard a month or so ago. But the chances of uncovering voter fraud are less, and literally less, than uncovering than being hit by lightning. Having said that, we take everything seriously, as you would hope us to do. And if there's any irregularity, we run it down to make sure that folks can have complete confidence that their vote counts and that this is being done transparently and in the right way that they should hope. This year, we have in-person early voting for the first time, which is exciting.
Yes.
So you can vote in person beginning on Saturday, October 23rd. Election day is November 2nd, so you have 9 days of in-person, and then election day itself. That's a huge step in the right direction to open up democracy. But folks should have every confidence, beyond any doubt, that their vote will be counted and that the system is transparent and that it works.
Yes, the system does work, and the vote is so important. Governor Murphy, thank you so much for your time on ITV Gold. I'd love for you to give one last message out to our viewers.
Oh, listen, I love being on ITV Gold. The South Asian community in our state is one of the most important and fastest growing. The Indian community in our state is one of the most important and fastest growing within that community. We are a nation of immigrants, and there's no state that wears that with pride more than New Jersey. And I'm honored to be your governor, and thrilled always to come back here and speak with you.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for your time today on ITV Gold.
Thank you, Aditi. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.